Thank you. A reminder to our sell-side analysts to please queue up on the bridge line. And for any investors on the webcast, feel free to ask a question through the console or email ir@box.com. Now I'll turn it over to the operator.
Line of Jason Adler from William Blair. The line is now open.
Yeah, thanks. Can you hear me, guys?
Hey.
Hello?
Hey, Jason, we can hear you.
You guys hear me okay?
Yeah.
Okay, great. All right, thank you. I've got two questions. Hold on a second. I'm getting a lot of feedback here. One second.
Sorry about that.
Yeah. One question for Dylan, one for Aaron. First, for Dylan, what would the revenue opportunity be if all customers went to Enterprise Plus, Aaron? Sorry, Dylan.
Sure. Yeah, I'll hand that one to Dylan. Sure. So as we've outlined, if you think about the direct impact from a customer using just our core operating, moving to Enterprise Plus, we tend to see a rough doubling in price per seat. At the same time, those types of deals also tend to be much larger deployments, which is why you see average contract values of our Suites customers, including Enterprise Plus, be roughly 10 times the value that our core-only customers are paying on an annual basis. So significant expansion opportunity driven both by larger deployments in terms of seats and higher pricing because of the impact of moving into our higher pricing plans.
Is there any dollar value you could?
So what I would say is, if you think about the overall seat expansion opportunity, we have a roughly 6x expansion opportunity within our existing customers if you compare the number of paid seats they have today versus the total addressable population. So there's that impact, and then on top of that is the pricing impact that I mentioned. So definitely a multiple in terms of addressable market within our current customers versus what they're paying today.
Great. And then for Aaron, what is the average customer using today for content management, and what is the key trigger point where a customer says, there has to be a better way, and I need to talk to these guys?
Sure. Yeah. So I'll maybe give you what we see generally, and Steph or Mark, if you want to chime in with any recent examples. Usually, when we show up at an organization, they tend to have a mix of legacy and sometimes modern, but no matter what, fragmented solutions that they're using for their content management environment. So it could be on-premises SharePoint, it could be OpenText, it could be Documentum. It can be NetApp or EMC, network file shares. Maybe end users have brought in point solutions at the end user level, maybe enterprise file sync and share technologies, maybe an e-signature solution. So when we show up, we sort of are looking at this landscape of very fragmented, disconnected solutions. And oftentimes there'll be 1, 2, or 3 use cases that the customer has, maybe external sharing securely with their partners or their ecosystem. Maybe it's about consolidating legacy IT environments. Maybe it's a brand new workflow that they want to be able to automate and streamline. So we'll find those new use cases, and then we'll connect the dots between IT and the line of business that has those problems. And then ultimately the Content Cloud will be implemented for those initial use cases. And it's our job from there to go and expand that deployment over time. So Steph and Mark, I don't know if you have thoughts to add on that.
If I just highlight a couple of the examples I gave in the presentation. So one of them, which was a financial services organization, we have many examples where there's a very specific use case. It could be virtual data room, life sciences one, it could be, doing research. Very, very, very clear use cases where current technology or their current tech stack just isn't able to address their ability to take those bits to market very quickly or to address their own user requirements. And so there are very specific reasons around these use cases, be it either a horizontal play or something very, very much within an industry that's really driving the customer to actually take advantage of the portfolio.
Thanks very much.
Thanks, Jason.
Your next question comes to the line of Chad Bennett from Craig-Hallum. Your line's now open.
Great. Thanks for taking my questions. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, Chad. Thanks.
Yeah. Hey, guys. So one of the slides that I thought was pretty interesting was the net expansion slide by Core Plus, and Suites, and the 115% plus net expansion on the Suite side. So I guess, considering when a customer moves to the Suite, they have the majority of the modules and functionality that you guys provide, if not all, in Enterprise Plus and so forth. Help us understand kind of the driver of that 115% net expansion, and kind of the add-on to that is maybe for Aaron, as you guys are building out the platform and the Suite, and you're seeing more Suite adoption, and you're seeing more usage of Sign and Relay and Shield and so forth, I hate to say, as you're potentially kind of the system of record for content, is there a bit of a flywheel effect of you once you get them on Suite, you actually see that migration to the cloud onto the platform from legacy point products or just legacy data, in a Documentum or something like that, start to really accelerate once they adopt Suite. So maybe if you could delve a little deeper into that stuff, that'd be great. Thank you.
Sure. Yeah, so I'll start. In terms of the dynamics that we're seeing, as you saw on that slide you referenced, we are seeing very healthy net retention rates across all customer types, but the dynamics are a little bit different. Whereas some of those core plus customers are driving that expansion in particular, both by seats and by moving into Suites increasingly. Suites customers are already bought into the full value of Box's capabilities. So there, what's really driving that higher net retention rate, that 115%, is really around more accelerated seat expansion. So once they're using Box and kind of leveraging the full value of the platform, they're much more likely to go in and expand into more of that untapped seat opportunity we were talking about previously. So that's what's driving it, is really the seat expansion disproportionately. And at the same time, because those solutions, our Suite solutions, are higher value, stickier use cases, those Suites customers also have the strongest customer retention rates, which helps fuel that strong net retention as well. And building on from that retention side, which kind of gets to the second part of your question of that flywheel of, more content comes into the system as we introduce more capabilities. We hopefully are building a stickier product for our customers. That retention rate is really driven by being able to increase the value that we're offering. And if you think back to, Box maybe 4, 5, 6, 7 years ago, we largely were used as a secure storage, sharing, and collaboration tool. Today, if you look at maybe our customers that are using the complete Content Cloud, we do everything from workflow automation, e-signature, advanced data security, and then coming into this year, and as you saw from Diego's, early visibility on the roadmap, you're going to see new expansions into the future of collaboration, content publishing and portals, new APIs and integrations, and much more. So we're going to drive this flywheel, which is enable customers to onboard via a number of use cases that are kind of their compelling events, whether that's secure external sharing, secure data rooms, being able to collaborate across their supply chain. Drive that land and expand motion as they adopt more of our capabilities, and then ultimately introduce the full suite to our customers. And then as you see us drive more product innovation, that's what will add even more value into our platform over time.
Got it. Thanks much.
Thank you.
And we have a question from an investor on the webcast, and this one is about Box Sign. When do you hope to achieve feature parity with DocuSign? And could you just talk about a little bit of the product differentiation between Box Sign, DocuSign, Adobe, and any other players?
Yeah, great. Well, so maybe I'll provide just a quick high-level framework and then hand it over to Diego to go a little bit deeper on the Sign front specifically. So the best way to think about our strategy is we want to build out a holistic platform that is built on the principles of the most secure Content Cloud that can enable how customers want to work with their content, share it, collaborate it, automate business processes around it. And so when we look at, for instance, the e-signature market, which was the most demanded new feature that customers were asking for from Box 2 years ago, we looked at all of the use cases around e-signature, all of the core functionality we already had around security, data governance, content management. And for us, it became a very natural use case to say, well, what if we made it easier for customers just to do that e-signature from Box? And so our philosophy is, can we get into markets where our strength in content management, security, data protection allows us to have a more differentiated offering than some of the other competition, and then obviously a strong economic advantage because we can fold it into a single platform bundle. And so that's sort of the overall philosophy of why we entered eSign, and then also why you're going to see us enter more markets. And then in terms of some of the upcoming features that I think will get us closer to more of the advanced features in this market, I'll let Diego kind of address some of that.
Thank you. So we are building enterprise features that are getting closer to parity, but the strategy is actually to integrate with the rest of the portfolio. So we're leveraging Shield, we're leveraging everything that we already have in the platform in terms of relay and using workflows that go together with signatures and then provide the value to our existing customers and upcoming ones to basically use Box as a whole complete platform instead of just single features alone. And we're going after the use cases that provide most value to the customer. So we're not intending to replace absolutely all use cases, but the most valuable that actually leverage the platform itself.
Operator?
Your next question comes from the line of Eric Suppiger from JMP. Your line is now open.
Yeah, thanks for taking the question. A few questions. First off, do you think that you can sustain double-digit productivity gains through fiscal 25? Is that what you're modeling? And then secondly, how has the level of experience of salespeople that you're hiring, how has that changed?
Yeah, so I'll let Dylan maybe kick off with the overall productivity story, and then Mark, if you want to build on that from a sales productivity standpoint. Sure. So would say that going forward, we do expect to generate incremental improvements in Salesforce productivity, but based on the very strong gains that we saw these past couple of years, that gives us the confidence to invest at higher levels in growing our overall sales force. And so if you think about our bookings growth for the year ahead, for example, we expect the majority of that to come from higher sales capacity, and then some of that to come from incremental improvements in our underlying sales force productivity.
Yeah, just to echo Dylan's comments, we will be hiring more sellers this year, so we won't have the same level of per rep productivity gains that we've seen the last couple of years because we'll be increasing capacity to take advantage of the growth opportunity we see in the marketplace. And then to answer your question on the types of sellers that we are hiring, the good news is that we hire people at different stages of their career. So we want to hire world-class enterprise software sellers, but we can hire them to sell to our SMB segment, to our mid-market segment, and to our enterprise segment. And they can be sort of recently out of college, or they can be, with decades and decades of enterprise software experience. So we have roles at Box for people at all those different stages of their career growth. And then we have a great enablement program to help them grow and learn and move up through those segments and have opportunities to learn and earn more and stay with us for the long term.
Okay, and then a quick question, just follow up on the Box sign. Can you give us a sense of where you are from a attachment rate across your customers and where you hope that might go by the end of fiscal 23?
Yeah, so as you know, the product just became live in Q4 of last year. We have been starting to promote it within the customer base and make sure that all of our new customers coming on board are seeing that as a core part of our positioning. We'll be doing even more rollout activities throughout this year to make it much more accessible, defaulted on in some cases for customers as they onboard to Box. So it's a sort of a rollout motion on that front. And overall, the adoption rates have been from our view very strong for an early product. The reaction from customers have been incredibly strong. 2 weeks ago, we had a customer advisory board, and the feedback from that advisory board on even the early use cases that they were seeing organically happen within their organizations was really profound, and that gives us a lot of confidence about what kind of impact this can have in FY23 and beyond.
Do you think it could be double-digit attachment rates by the end of 23?
Well, the way to think about it is all of our customers have access to Box Sign. So attachment is not a metric that is sort of what you would classically think of. We made versions of Box Sign available to our Business Edition all the way up to our Enterprise Plus Edition. So it's much more about how do we drive as much adoption as possible on the product and then use the advanced features to create even more value as customers move up into Enterprise Plus. And then the only other thing that we did call out on the earnings call was that we do have individual monetizable APIs that if a customer wants to embed Box Sign into an application that they've developed, then they will pay for Box Sign API volume. And so that will be something that would have a sort of separate attach rate, but it's only really used for customers that want to use our APIs for that type of use case. So we wouldn't really think about it in the same kind of, again, attach rate type metric. So for now, I would think about Box Sign as included in all of our business editions all the way up to Enterprise Plus, and we're going to make sure we drive as much usage and stickiness of the product as possible, and then use that to drive seat expansion, greater price per seat over time, and more value for our customers.
Great. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Eric.
Your next question comes from the line of George Ivanich from Oppenheimer. Your line is now open.
Thank you for taking my question. So, Mark, maybe you can give us some field perspective on which features really drive the new customer attach rate, and then what are the features that really are important from an expansion perspective.
Yeah, happy to. There's really two areas where we get the most interest that are probably the most common sort of doors into an organization, and those would be external collaboration. So generally speaking, prospects are having challenges in sharing secure content externally with partner suppliers in their ecosystem, and that's a very common use case. And without a good solution, they revert to old models, email, and whatnot. So that's one area that generally gets us in. The other one that we see on an increasing basis is around security. I think last year we saw a number of net new logos that were purely purchased because of a security challenge. So that's very common. And then I would say a third trend, which is very much an emerging one, is with the average enterprise having 187 SaaS applications. I don't know if it's 87 too many or 100 too many, but there's definitely SaaS fatigue within the organization, both among CIOs and among CFOs. And there's an opportunity for consolidation. And I think now with our roadmap, with Sign, and with a number of other offerings that we're coming out with, we have a very credible argument to CIOs and to CFOs that we can help them shrink the footprint of SaaS applications by consolidating on the Content Cloud. So I think that there's sort of an app rationalization play in addition to security and external collaboration that we're seeing regularly.
All right, and Stephanie, maybe could you give us a little bit more color on the digital initiatives and what you're seeing from a new customer pipeline perspective?
Yeah, that's a great question. We spent a lot of time and effort, sort of pre-pandemic, quite candidly, and then took advantage of all of the work that we had done and the investments we were making with engineering and our build colleagues to ensure that there was this seamless transition. In the last 2 years, we really are a digital-first company, and we wanted to make sure that that experience really shone brightly. And so we've spent a lot of time doing things like making sure that the in-product adoption is there, and so it's so that it's a seamless sort of transactional sort of buying pattern, but also just in terms of adoption of the product. So we've done lots of work on Box.com to ensure that everything from all things e-commerce that we're doing, from looking at the plans and upscaling and buying through the plans, all the way through to adopting the products, becomes a really seamless thing. So Diego's team and our team have been sort of jointly working through that, and we've seen huge uptick. I mean, the self-service element is important. We want our customers to be able to buy more seats, to be able to buy more products at any point in time, and we've really spent, I think, a ton of investment making sure that that's a great experience, and we're going to continue to do that. We want to make sure that everything that our customers can see and touch is online. So anything else you'd add, Diego?
I would say the use of Box Shuttle to basically do the intake and basically get the information, get the content onto Box has been a great addition to the platform, and now we're making it much more self-service that empowers the customers to basically do it themselves and save time, save money, and be more productive. And we see an extraordinary adoption for it, and it's a great addition. We're really hearing good things from the whole customer base on that.
And Diego, since I have you, what features are you really excited about when you look at the 3-year roadmap?
We need a long time for that. There are so many cool things coming up. We mentioned a number of them. I mean, we have the whole ecosystem around Sign and the integration of Sign with workflows and integration with Sign and security. So you would see the value of having all of those working together. That's super exciting, not only technologically, but also for the value that we provide, because it's a big differentiator. So back to the earlier question about basically how to compete in terms of feature parity, that's not the point. Actually, that differentiation in terms of the integration with the rest and with compliance, where we're very strong, and we differentiate with other solutions in the market that don't do that. It's very exciting to me. Another area that was also briefly mentioned, but is super important to us, is collaboration. We have a number of products coming up on that front of different types of collaboration and productivity increases that come from it. Super exciting. We have a number of things that basically help the customers basically operate more efficiently, like we mentioned, Box Shuttle. We have also infrastructure improvements that we're also working on that keep basically accelerating the deployment and the efficiency, where you get data residency more effective, also especially in Europe, that also allows basically customers to work in country. That's also super important. The list is very long. I'm super proud of the number of things coming up. Feel free to ask if you want on anyone in particular, but those are some of the areas of high excitement.
Thank you.
Thank you. I know that we had some echoing issues on the very first question, so I'd just like to ask it again so that everyone had an opportunity to hear the answer. The question from Jason Ader and William Blair was, what is the revenue opportunity if all customers were to move to Enterprise Plus?
Yeah. To re-answer, yeah. So the opportunity when moving to Enterprise Plus is really the combination of the significant seat expansion opportunity, where we have a roughly 6x expansion opportunity in even a typical customer, and there's the pricing and price per seat vector of adopting suites, where we tend to see a rough doubling in price per seat versus customers who aren't using any of our add-on products. So you can think about those two factors combined and kind of multiplied to get a sense of the total expansion opportunity when more and more of our customers adopt suites.
Thank you. And we had another question regarding the workforce, and what are you currently seeing in your hiring and attrition rates?
Yeah, so maybe I'll take it at a high level and then hand it over to Jess. Overall, we're super happy about the current rates that we have of new folks coming on board. I think we remain one of the few places, especially in tech, where if you want to have an insanely massive impact on how the world works, whether you want to build software or sell software that NASA uses to go to space, or that AstraZeneca uses to develop a new clinical drug, or that Disney or Pixar uses to make a film, there's not a lot of places you can work where you can have that kind of impact and work at sort of consumer internet scale, where tens of millions of people are going to use the software that you're writing or experience the technology that you're helping create. So I think our competitiveness for talent is the best that it's ever been, and overall I've been very happy to see how the culture has responded in the past couple of years, especially amidst a very, very dynamic market. But Jess, I don't know if you want to build on that.
Yeah, definitely. To echo what you said, Aaron, I think it's an incredibly exciting time to be part of Box, both in terms of the roadmap, the products, the business success, but also I think our culture and the people continues to be both a way that we attract and we retain people. And so actually turning to the attrition question too, our attrition actually has been steadily declining despite kind of the intense pressures beyond the market. So yeah, it's we're very proud, and I think it's definitely an incredibly important part of both our strategy and our success.
Your next question comes to the line of Brian Peterson from Raymond James. Your line's now open.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for taking the questions, and I appreciate all the context here. So Dylan, first one for you. Is there a right way to think about kind of the trend line in sales capacity as we think about fiscal year 25? I know you mentioned that there will be incremental hire or sales investments. Is like low double digits maybe the right way to think about kind of a CAGR for capacity extension?
Yeah, so I'd say that if you think about bridging from FY22 last year, what we've talked about for this year, and then moving through to FY25, would think about both the overall revenue growth outcomes and those improvements, and then the underlying drivers to be fairly steady on an annual basis through FY25. So I would say that that's spot on, that the way we talk about decomposing that growth between investments in sales capacity, improvements in Salesforce productivity should generally hold in the coming years based on everything we're seeing in the business today.
Yeah, and maybe as a follow-up, and this is probably a strange question to ask in light of all the momentum that you guys are seeing on pricing, but it was interesting when you put up the user expansion slide. You know, obviously there's a big opportunity, but when you listen to how the customer is using it, it's more about use cases, right, and not about users. So as we think about the evolution of the packaging, is there ever a scenario where it shifts more towards use cases and away from users? I'm just curious to get your thoughts on that.
Yeah, maybe I'll take it at a high level, and then and Steph and I have been probably working on this the longest, but Mark, if you want to build on this as well. So for us, there's almost a one-to-one correlation between users and use cases. Our economic value is probably generated by the number of seats. But by definition, to expand the number of users, usually more use cases are being introduced from the platform, or the company is just literally, bringing on more employees that they need more seats for those use cases. So in many examples, we'll go from one department, maybe the sales team or the marketing team that's leveraging Box, and then all of a sudden the customer has a couple more departments that want it, and then eventually it becomes enterprise-wide. The interesting thing is, as you go from those different departments, the use cases might have similar sort of generalities: secure collaboration, external sharing of data, workflow automation, now e-signature, but the use cases for each of those divisions will likely be different. One might be, R&D team would be working with their supplier partners. A marketing team would be working with their ad agencies. And so, we have actually, I think, the advantage position where we have a horizontal platform. Every single person on the planet that has a job interacts with content. And so everybody is doing something related to content. Some have more sensitive content than others, but in general, you're going to be working with some form of information. And so we are in this great position where we can expand horizontally in an enterprise. We can expand based on use cases. We can expand based on functionality that we've offered. But we really like our horizontal model. And so I think the closest thing that gets to maybe what you're asking is, what we do in our go-to-market team is try and introduce the sort of use cases through the go-to-market lens to the customer, so they can get those ideas much faster, as opposed to kind of packaging up products and selling them as use cases and sort of independently monetizing in a slightly different way. But I don't know if you want to build on that stuff.
Yeah, and Mark can probably add as well. The really cool thing about Box is that everyone can use it, and that's the beauty of it. And the users are driving the use cases. So if the marketing department, if you start as a departmental sale in many of our clients, and let's say it's marketing, and they're using it for external collaboration and a whole bunch of really cool and important things, the department next to them sort of gets wind of this as well, and the users are identifying that the use case as a horizontal use case is really relevant to them, and that's how you go, enterprise-wide, quite frankly. And that's the really great thing about this platform, is that we can have umpteen conversations across the organization around multiple use cases through either a functional lens or a line of business lens, and even an industry lens. So you could be a financial services customer and you really are looking for sort of a virtual data room. The foundational elements of that still include all the things, all the horizontal benefits of external collaboration, etc., but very specifically addressing business needs. And that's kind of what Mark and I do all day long, is we talk to customers about those examples.
Yeah, and I would just add, I think this is one of the most exciting things about what's going on with the Content Cloud platform, is that I agree with Aaron, we are about use cases and users, but the nature of the use cases that we're starting to support are by definition enterprise-wide. So we're selling more and more wall-to-wall deals than ever before in company history, because if you're a chief information security officer and we implement Shield, which is our best-in-class security solution for the Content Cloud, you don't want a department in your company to have best-in-class security for their content while the other department does not. Or if you implement Box Sign for electronic signatures, and we're now starting to support a lot of these use cases for electronic signature that have not been lit up yet because organizations don't want to pay the sort of per signature, per envelope charge. So take internal sort of employee-only type things like onboarding documents or quarterly certification documents. Those are not going to be departmental in nature. These are going to be enterprise-wide solutions. So really the nature of the product portfolio and what we're doing with the platform lends itself to more of these wall-to-wall, all employee type use cases, and I think that's a very exciting change for us.
Great color. Thank you.
Thanks, Brian.
Your next question comes to the line of George Kurosawa from KeyBank. Your line's now open.
Hi, thanks for taking the question. This is George on for Steve. First question I wanted to ask on the FY25 target model. Should we think about this as being as incorporating the same degree of conservatism that a typical annual guide would incorporate, or is this more of an aspirational target?
I'll let Dylan take that, yeah.
Yeah, feel very confident in our ability to deliver against both the top and bottom line components of that FY25 target based on the momentum that we're seeing in the business. It's effectively assuming we continue to execute, do the things we've been doing, and so feel very confident if you think about the drivers of that from continued Suites adoption, generating continued improvements in Salesforce productivity, and underpinned by very strong customer economics. So would say that we feel very confident in delivering against that, and certainly, as always, want to be prudent with any targets that we put out there that we have a high degree of confidence in meeting or exceeding.
Understood. Thank you. And then one follow-up on the Enterprise Plus strategy. Is it correct to think about this as additive or more replacing to the existing product suite? So is this sort of the next evolution, or is this something that's being kind of layered on top of what you currently have today?
Yeah, so I think as maybe Steph showed, and then I'll let her build on this. We introduced Suites a couple years ago based on the feedback from customers that they wanted simpler ways of getting our multiple products that we had on as add-on solutions. Similarly, we looked internally and realized that our sales motion was probably becoming more efficient because we were selling each product separately. And so that's what brought us to the initial bundles, which were our initial product suites. What happened was we ended up having 4 product suites, and we said, well, what if we could even simplify this further for our both sales team and customers by creating a suite that we thought best represented our complete product lineup, and that was the Enterprise Plus plan. So you can think about it as all of the lessons from our suites and delivering on this multi-product suite that we think is going to be carrying a lot of the momentum going forward.
Agreed. Actually, Mark, you've seen it firsthand the last 5 months, like this incredible seamless transition for our field teams to actually have conversations with customers about taking advantage of the whole platform. How would you describe it?
Yeah, just to echo the comments, it's really been about streamlining the sales motion and making it more repeatable so that we can serve hundreds of thousands of customers with our sales team that's across segments and across geographies and translates languages. And so it is really just a learning from the experience that we had with Suites, and we've just made that offering just much better. And you can see it in my presentation I shared. You can see the results on the first 6 months of E Plus versus Suites. The results are dramatic, and we're really just getting started.
Great. Thank you very much for taking the questions.
Your next question comes to the line of Josh Baer from Morgan Stanley. Your line's now open.
Thanks. Most of my questions have been asked, so we'll throw one in on gross margins. Great to see all the breakouts in the 85% plus margins in Suites. I guess with that in mind and with the mix of Suites as a percent of revenue expected to be over 50% in FY25, I think that implies mid-60s for the rest of the business to get to 77% overall. But in that rest of the business, we know that 80% margins for Core Plus and the Core has 75%. And so what does that imply for the under $5,000 customers or the education customers or anyone else that isn't captured on that slide? Or separately, any reason to think that Suites would drop below 85%, or is that 77% target really just conservative, or anything else to consider there on margins?
Sure. So piecing that apart, overall, do feel very confident that we'll be able to continue improving our overall gross margin. Within those 3 customer categories, as we move more and more customers into Suites, we could see movements, between those categories, but underpinned by an overall strengthening, based on the higher value, stickier use cases associated with Suites adoption. Would say that for some of the smallest customers, those do have somewhat lower gross margins, but a pretty small percentage of our overall revenue, so isn't a material driver. I would say that if you think about those customer economics that we showed, that is the subscription gross margin across those customers. So it doesn't factor in the impact of our lower margin professional services business, which is a roughly 3 points headwind when comparing subscription to total gross margin. So would factor that in. And then in terms of the overall conservatism, we definitely do see upside in our gross margin, both for FY25 and beyond, particularly if we can continue to execute against all the infrastructure and efficiency initiatives we outlined, and if we continue to see the type of pricing improvements that we've been delivering over the past few years, that would create some additional gross margin upside by FY25 as well.
Great. Thanks, Dylan. That's helpful.
Thanks, Josh.
And we have another question. This one is regarding Japan. You've been very successful in this region the last few quarters. Could you talk about the durability of this opportunity and how are you investing behind it?
Yeah. So
Can I take that one? I'm going to steal this one. I spent a lot of time in Japan. We've had incredible growth in Japan. Katsun's done a remarkable job of building a really, really nice business there for us. And we see a tremendous amount of opportunity ahead. One example, we just completed ISMAP compliance in the last year, which allows us to really fully enter sort of financial services and government markets in a way that we had never done before. And we've already started seeing some incredible results just from like taking that industry lens through that compliance cert that just occurred. The opportunities are vast. We've actually opened an office. We've had an office open in Osaka now for nearly, I think, 2 years as well, because we see a tremendous opportunity within Tokyo, in Osaka, and sort of going more broadly. And we're really investing heavily in our resources on the ground there. We have a big team and a growing team right downtown and covering all industries right now. So we are super excited. The moral of the story internally is we let Katsan get whatever he needs, because the growth engine for us in Japan has just been tremendous, and we see a lot of opportunities. We also just want to sort of do a bit of a shout out. We have an incredible partner ecosystem, probably the strongest partner ecosystem of any vendor, I think, in Japan, with over 400 partners working alongside our teams in that market, which is really allowing us to, I think, capitalize on the opportunities. We have a growing team on the ground, both ourselves and the broader ecosystem, and so our reach is really, really wide, and so we're super excited about sort of the year ahead and the next 5 years, quite frankly. We've told them we've got to keep growing at the same rate that they have for the last 5. So, yeah, we'll continue to make investments for sure.
Your next question comes from the line of Pinjalim Bora from JP Morgan. The line's now open.
So great. Hey, everybody. Thank you for taking the questions. Great presentation, lots of information. I'll throw in a few. First, on the movement to Enterprise Plus from a sales strategy point of view, seems like you have not completely rolled that into, if I understand that correctly, into the field sales. When is that happening? And then if somebody is already in the suites contract, how is that going to migrate? How have you been handling those situations?
Yeah, let me set up the question and then hand over to Mark. And Steph had a slide in the presentation that hopefully clarified this. You can generally think of Enterprise Plus as for most customers as a suite. It just has a different branding because we wanted it in our main product lineup to even be easier for them to consume. So there's not any urgency to migrate customers. The set of features they have available to them, whether they're on one of our initial 4 suites or Enterprise Plus, is the same. There's some slight modifications and improvements that we made over time, but nothing that is sort of impactful. And it is available to all of our customers, and we have been pushing on it. But it's not a metric of moving customers from an initial suite to E Plus that is going to be meaningful either economically or to the customer. The most important thing is that all of our customers, from a total ARR standpoint, move to our multi-product plans, which obviously Enterprise Plus is now the lead plan that we're pushing on.
Yeah, it's all systems go on Enterprise Plus. We're in our 3rd quarter of selling, and it's wildly successful. No tapping of the brake pedal on that product, so it's going very, very well in all segments, in all geographies, in all verticals. So pushing on it very hard. We lead with Enterprise Plus with our net new customers. We're looking to upgrade all of our existing customers to Enterprise Plus. But when we lead with Enterprise Plus, we're leading with the full features of the Content Cloud platform. But it's great to have other additions because sometimes we run into budget pressures or other objections, and that allows us a fallback position where we can still land the account, which is our business model, that land, adopt, or retain, adopt, expand motion. And we can maybe land the account at a different price point and then give us a path to upgrade later. So that's a very, very successful selling motion for us, and we'll see big lift from it this year.
Got it. Understood. Okay. One question on the Content Cloud. One thing that kind of caught my attention, I think you were talking about some of these use cases that has crossed linkages between Sign or say Box Shield policy with Box Sign or something else. Are you seeing customers really, use such use cases increasingly, and could that really drive or act as a lever for driving churn down?
Yeah, so I'll maybe just quickly add a little philosophy and then maybe over to Diego and stuff from what they're seeing. And actually, Stanley from Broadcom kind of represents this, which is he talked about a classification policy they have with Relay. And that is, both the combination of security and workflow, in one integrated fashion for them. Now you add in things like Box Sign into Relay, plus, our security functionality, and you can start to have an end-to-end business process, from a customer onboarding where they have to sign a document, they have to submit, financial data. Maybe this is an onboarding process at a bank. That workflow needs to be, end-to-end executed on the Box platform, and we now have more and more of the capabilities to keep that lifecycle of that business process on a single architecture. Whereas, a couple of years ago, a customer would have to buy 3 or 5 different technologies, stitch them all together, do all that integration themselves, and even at the end of it, probably not have that great of a user experience. And so that's the power of this integrated offering, and why our Content Cloud strategy is so important to really driving this growth going forward.
Yeah, a couple more things. On one hand, by having everything integrated and protected with Shield, you reduce the surface area for potential attacks or risk. So companies that are concerned about security want to have basically consolidation to basically a fewer number of vendors. That's one dimension. Another dimension is something we haven't talked much yet in this Q&A, but we have a lot of integrations too. So it's not only the number of things that we have integrated from our platform in our own implementations, but also some of our partners that sometimes come to play. And some customers would come and say, my legal team is receiving a document that was sent by their partner on a Google Docs type of sense, but they want to operate and work on the document maybe on Microsoft software, and they keep everything in Box. That's quite unique, and that's a differentiator too. So it's not only basically our own implementations, but also who we work with that makes a big difference.
Got it. Last question, and I'll go back in the queue. I wanted to ask a question on Microsoft. I mean, we heard a lot of positive information on the partnership between Microsoft and Box today, with a lot of customer examples, and obviously it's clear what the differentiation that Box brings to the table versus the product that Microsoft offers. But I was looking at Okta's Business at Work report that came out late January. It seems like Box features prominently as the content management platform there among the Microsoft 365 users. I think they say 25% of Microsoft 365 users are using Box today, which is pretty good. But when I look at the trend, seems like from 2017 to 2022, it's kind of retracting back a little bit from, I think, 7 to 10 points, while apps like Slack or Zoom or Smartsheet, which might have competitive Microsoft products, are actually going the other direction. So I wanted to ask you, I mean, how do you make sense of that? Or would you say you're actually now with Content Cloud better positioned to gain that share of the Microsoft 365?
Yeah, so overall, we're happy about our share, and we will certainly be increasing that with our Content Cloud strategy. I think the results, mostly of that metric is probably just the sheer increase in the number of Microsoft deployments within the Okta ecosystem. So it's sort of, we don't obviously have access to all their proprietary data, but that seems to be one of the bigger drivers. And the fact that we have over 100,000 customers on our platform. And so while there is some overlap with the Okta customer base, it's clearly not a one-for-one given the sheer scale of our customer base. So we have, various other indicators around the interoperability trends that we're seeing within our customer base and our deals, overall. So overall, happy with the metric. You will see it go higher, but also, probably not completely holistically representative of what we tend to see. And then I think as you saw in that report, we're very clearly the number one enterprise, Content Cloud, as any other independent vendor. So we're certainly happy about our showing in general as the leading independent Content Cloud amongst that entire ecosystem. But I think, overall, and you heard it from Mark, you heard it from Diego, you heard it from Steph, we are super focused on driving both an incredibly differentiated strategy versus maybe what would be in the offerings of Microsoft or other platforms, as well as one that perfectly complements how our customers are deploying Microsoft. So if you think about a Microsoft deployment with Dynamics or Teams or Office 365 or Azure, that ability to have a Content Cloud that both integrates with all those applications, but very importantly integrates with all the other software that is not Microsoft. So being able to have a single source of truth for contracts that will show up in Teams as well as Salesforce, that's a very unique value proposition that certainly Microsoft can't, claim to have, but also doesn't really exist in any of the legacy platforms as well, because those platforms are not as focused on interoperability and openness in a very seamless way. So we think both our differentiation in terms of the features we're building out, e-signature, sort of new collaboration capabilities, workflow automation, those will continue to be very differentiated. We'll go deeper in content, whereas Microsoft's probably going wider in productivity, as well as our ability to integrate and continue to partner successfully with Microsoft, which has obviously, really been transformational in the past couple of years and very different from maybe how it was 5 or 10 years ago. Those two are really important factors for our success. And Mark or Diego.
Thank you.
Yeah,
very, very helpful.
Awesome. Yeah, thank you.
Your last question comes from the line of Rishi Jaluria from RBC. Your line is now open.
Hey, wonderful. Thanks everyone for squeezing me in, and appreciate all the detail that you've provided. I want to just do two quick ones. First, just following up on the theme of Japan. You've highlighted how it's been a great performing geography for you. You've highlighted some other kind of focus countries outside the U.S. Are there any particular geographies that you're particularly excited about seeing, really good early traction, or I guess asked in a more succinct way, which geography do you feel like could be the next Japan, that's a runaway success? And then I've got a follow-up.
Yeah, well, I think in general it's always hard for us because we like a lot of our regions. So we might not give you a level of precision on that you'd love. But we are, investing appropriate to the opportunity size that we see. And we get very excited about the different, upside in frankly, all of the regions that we're in, which is why Mark had a very kind of key point about how focused we are on the regions that we see a lot of upside in. But I'll let you build on that if you'd like.
Yeah, you can't have any favorite children. But we do see a lot of growth outside the U.S., not just in Japan, but outside the U.S. And I think that, as I stated in my earlier presentation, the thing about our model is that when we bring on a new customer, it's not just a salesperson that's getting that work done, but we need a seller and a marketer and a legal person and customer success. And we need a whole team in order to make those customers successful and then to get them to adopt the technology, to be wildly successful with it, and then they will buy more seats and they will upgrade to Enterprise Plus. So we want to make those investments with our employees, with Boxers, in the regions around the world that have the highest yield. And so that's Western Europe, it's Australia, New Zealand, it's Canada, it's Japan. So we're investing heavily in those countries that I shared in my presentation. I mean, to answer your question, there's a huge opportunity for us in Europe, most certainly. And the largest markets there are obviously Germany, France, UK, and Ireland. And so we have employees in those markets across all of our go-to-market functions, and we're investing heavily. We have great new leadership in Europe, and I'm expecting it to be a great year for our business there.
All right, wonderful. That's helpful. And then just a question on Sign. You're obviously seeing some nice customer use cases, and some of the names that you announced, looks like there's a decent amount of overlap between Box Sign and the largest player in this space. Just how do you think about, is this a situation where there's just going to be coexisting, or are any of those customers talking about displacements or these particular use cases? Maybe walk us through how you're thinking about that dynamic. Thank you.
Yeah. So at a philosophical level, you can always think about anything we do through the lens of interoperability and openness. So even if we get into a market where we start competing, maybe as a virtue of us offering more value for our customers, we will always let our customers have a choice of using another offering and being able to kind of swap in those components. And so even today, customers can choose which e-signature vendor they want to turn on, whether it's the Box Sign, product or another e-sign vendor. That being said, we really are following our customers in this market in terms of the use cases that they've been asking for, the kind of demand and reaction that they've had where they've said, hey, I already have my contracts in Box, I already have my NDAs, I already have maybe my compliance documents. Could you make it easier for me to get those electronically signed in one seamless experience? And that was what compelled us to move into the space more. Certainly the tailwinds around digital transformation were kind of the multiplier effect, but openness and interoperability is always our focus. But customers really were pulling us into wanting an integrated seamless offering. In terms of customer demand, Mark, I don't know if you want to share recent customer conversations of how customers are thinking about this overall.
Yeah, our customers are thrilled about our approach with Sign. And, I think the thing that we're hearing, and I'm experiencing and talking to customers around the world, is that really the signature itself, the actual signing of the signature, is really a feature, and it's now a feature of the Content Cloud. But everything that happens to that document before and after is really where the heavy lifting happens. And so when you use Box Sign as part of the Content Cloud, then you get to take advantage of really best-in-class governance and security and how that document gets shared. And importantly, how do I go find it later when I want to go find that document again? And these are areas where typical solutions, to Aaron's comments around stitching together solutions, get really messy for organizations. So really what I'm hearing from IT executives around the world is like, can you guys go faster? I'm ready for it right now. How can we start turning it on now? And so we're seeing heavy adoption of the product. We have enterprises around the world that are in POCs with Box Sign right now, and they're lighting up new electronic signature use cases that they have not lit up before. And it's a very disruptive approach to the market, making that really a feature of a Content Cloud.
All right, really helpful. Thank you.
Thanks, Rishi. All right. Well, I just want to say thanks again for everybody tuning in today. This is our FY23 Financial Analyst Day. You've heard from some of the leaders in the company about what we're doing, where we're taking the business, and what the next few years look like for Box. So thanks again, and looking forward to staying in touch. And let's make this yet another year of fantastic growth and results.